And remember this, not everyone you love is healthy for your soul. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away and never look back. 11. Stop trying to save people who enjoy destroying you. This is one of the hardest lessons in life. You cannot save everyone, especially people who are comfortable hurting you. Some of you spent years trying to fix a toxic people, trying to heal them, trying to understand them, trying to love them enough so they would finally treat you right. But listen carefully. Love does not change people who are committed to staying toxic. Read that again. Because many good-hearted people destroy themselves trying to rescue people who enjoy chaos. You keep thinking, if I stay patient, if I love them harder, if I sacrifice more, things will change. But instead, you become exhausted, emotionally drained, mentally tired, spiritually broken. Why? Because you were never meant to carry someone else's darkness. That's not your job. And toxic people? They often take advantage of kind hearts. They know you forgive easily. They know you care deeply. They know you don't like giving up on people. So they keep crossing lines because they believe you'll always stay. That's why boundaries matter. Because without boundaries, kindness becomes self-destruction. You start abandoning yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And eventually, you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You become anxious, overly emotional, constantly stressed. Not because you're weak, but because you've been carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry. Listen, you are not responsible for healing people who refuse to heal themselves. You are not responsible for fixing broken people at the cost of your own peace. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, not out of hate, but out of wisdom. Because staying connected to toxic people will slowly poison your spirit. And many people don't realize this. Toxicity spreads. If you stay around negativity long enough, you start becoming negative too. You lose your joy, your patience, your confidence. That's why environment matters. Because whoever surrounds you shapes you. And if you continue surrounding yourself with manipulation, drama, disrespect, you will eventually normalize it. That's dangerous. Never normalize pain just because it became familiar. Some of you became so used to toxic behavior that peace feels strange now. Healthy love feels boring. Respect feels suspicious. Calmness feels unfamiliar. Why? Because chaos became your emotional comfort zone, and healing requires breaking that cycle. It requires retraining your mind to stop chasing dysfunction, to stop confusing emotional instability with passion. Because real love does not constantly wound you. Real love does not make you afraid. It does not make you question your worth every day. It does not manipulate your emotions. Real love protects your spirit. And if someone repeatedly destroys your spirit, you need to stop calling it love. Not call it what it is, a lesson, a warning, a wake-up call. Now listen carefully. This next part might hurt. Some people know exactly what they're doing to you. They know they're manipulating you. They know they're draining your energy. They know they only show up when they need something. And they continue because you continue allowing it. That's why healing starts with responsibility, not blame. Responsibility. You must take responsibility for what you tolerate. Because every time you ignore disrespect, you teach people how to treat you. Every time you abandon your boundaries, you send a message that your peace is negotiable, and your peace should never be negotiable. Never. Protect it, guard it, fight for it. Because peace is expensive. It costs relationships. It costs attachments. It costs letting go of people you thought would stay forever. But the price is worth it. Because once you experience true peace, you realize how exhausting toxic environments really were. You realize how much energy you wasted trying to survive emotionally. And suddenly, you breathe differently. You sleep better. You feel lighter. You feel lighter. That's what freedom feels like. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from emotional chaos. Freedom from constantly shrinking yourself to make toxic people comfortable. And let me tell you something powerful. Your future self will thank you for walking away, even if your current self is hurting. Because growth often feels painful in the beginning. Why? Because your mind is addicted to familiarity, even unhealthy familiarity. That's why people return to toxic relationships. Not because they're happy, but because it feels familiar. And healing feels uncomfortable at first. Silence feels uncomfortable. Peace feels uncomfortable. Distance feels uncomfortable, but don't confuse discomfort with wrong decisions. Sometimes the uncomfortable choice is the healthiest one. And right now, you have a choice. You can continue repeating cycles, or you can break them. You can continue chasing toxic people, or you can choose yourself for once. And choosing yourself does not mean you hate them. It means you finally love yourself enough to stop accepting pain as normal. That's growth. Real growth. Not motivational quotes. Not pretending to be strong online. Real growth is walking away when your heart wants to stay. Real growth is saying, I deserve better, even when you still love them. That takes strength. And most people never reach that level because emotional discipline is rare. Most people are controlled by attachment, controlled by loneliness, controlled by fear, fear of starting over, fear of being alone, fear of losing connection. But listen, loneliness will never destroy you the way toxic people will. Solitude can heal you. Toxicity destroys you slowly. So stop fearing isolation. Some of the greatest transformations happen in isolation. That's where you rediscover yourself, your standards, your voice, your confidence. That's where God works on you the most, away from distractions, away from toxic noise, away from draining people. And maybe that's exactly what this season of your life is about, separation, not punishment, not punishment. Preparation for a better life, better relationships, better peace. But first, you must release what's poisoning your spirit. And yes, it will hurt. Because healing requires grieving. You're not just grieving a person, you're grieving the version of life you imagined with them. The future you hoped for, the memories you replayed in your head. But healing means accepting reality, not potential. Reality. And reality says, some people are not healthy for you, no matter how much you love them, no matter how long you've known them, no matter how strong the attachment feels. Because love alone is not enough. Without respect, without honesty, without peace, love becomes painful. And love was never meant to destroy you. So stop trying to rescue people who are comfortable drowning you. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep toxic people warm. Choose yourself. Choose healing. Choose peace. Because one day you're going to look back at the people you begged to stay. And thank God they left. You're going to realize that losing toxic people was not a tragedy. It was protection. It was redirection. It was the beginning of becoming who you were truly meant to be. And that journey, it starts the moment you stop trying to save people who enjoyed destroying you. Well, the moment you respect yourself, everything changes. There comes a moment in life when you get tired. Not tired physically, tired emotionally, tired of overgiving, tired of explaining yourself, tired of loving people who only love you when it benefits them. And one day, something inside you shifts. You stop begging for attention. You stop chasing validation. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into toxic environments. Because you finally realize something powerful. Self-respect changes everything. The moment you truly respect yourself, your standards rise. And when your standards rise, certain people lose access to you. That's why toxic people often get angry when you start healing. Because your healing removes their control. Before, you tolerated disrespect. Now you walk away from it. But before you ignored red flags, now you recognize them early. Before you sacrificed your peace just to avoid losing people. Now you understand losing yourself is the real tragedy. And that realization, it changes your entire life. Because self-respect is not loud. It's not arrogance. It's not ego. No. Self-respect is quiet strength. It's the ability to say, I will no longer accept what destroys my peace. That's power, and many people never reach that level. Why? Because they fear disappointing others. They fear rejection. They fear loneliness. They fear being misunderstood. So they continue tolerating things that slowly break them. But listen carefully. Every time you disrespect yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you lose a piece of your spirit. Every time you ignore your intuition, you weaken your confidence. Me. Because deep inside, you know when something is wrong. You know when someone is draining you. You know when a relationship is unhealthy. You know when your soul feels heavy around certain people. But many people silence that inner voice because they don't want to let go. And that's how suffering continues. Not because the signs weren't there, but because attachment was stronger than wisdom. But once self-respect enters your life, everything changes. You stop forcing connections, you stop chasing people who only give half effort. So, you stop trying to convince people to see your value. Why? Because valuable people do not beg to be valued. Read that again. The moment you understand your worth, you stop settling for emotional crumbs. You stop entertaining inconsistency. You stop accepting disrespect disguised as a love. And toxic people hate that version of you because they can no longer manipulate you emotionally. Now watch this carefully. The strongest people in life are not the ones who fight for every relationship. They are the ones who know when to let go. That's wisdom. Ugu. Because maturity teaches you something important. Not every connection deserves saving. Some relationships only exist to teach you boundaries. Some people enter your life only to show you what you should never tolerate again. And once the lesson is learned, you must move forward. Not emotionally stay stuck in the past, because holding on too long to toxic people will delay your growth, and growth is necessary. Your future depends on it. You cannot enter a better season of life while carrying old emotional baggage. You cannot become stronger while constantly returning to environments that weaken you. Eventually, you must choose comfort or growth, attachment or peace, toxic familiarity or healthy transformation. And let me tell you something, growth feels lonely at first. Why the? Because when you start respecting yourself, a lot of people disappear. The users disappear, the manipulators disappear, the fake supporters disappear. And at first, that loneliness hurts. You start questioning yourself. Did I change too much? Am I becoming cold? Why do I feel so alone? But listen carefully, you are not losing people. You are losing misalignment. Huge difference. Because real connections survive boundaries. Healthy people respect your growth. Only toxic people become angry when you stop tolerating disrespect. And that's how you identify who truly belongs in your life. Pay attention to how people react when you start protecting your peace. That reaction tells you everything. Now hear this clearly, self-respect also changes your relationship with yourself. You stop abandoning your own needs. You stop betraying your own intuition. Nequation. You stop settling for less than you deserve. And slowly your confidence returns. Not fake confidence, real confidence. The kind built through pain, through lessons, through survival. The kind that says, I've been through enough to know what I will never tolerate again. That confidence is powerful. Because now you move differently. You think differently, you choose differently, you love differently. You stop getting attached too quickly. You stop ignoring warning signs just because someone gives you attention. You realize attention is cheap, respect is rare, peace is rare, loyalty is rare, loyalty is rare. And those are the things that truly matter, not temporary emotions. Now let's talk about something important, forgiveness. Because many people think healing means hating toxic people forever. No, healing means releasing bitterness, not reconnecting. Huge difference. You can forgive someone and still never allow them access to your life again. Forgiveness is for your peace, not their convenience. And sometimes the healthiest closure is distance. No final conversation, no long explanation, no revenge, just distance, silence, growth. Because mature people understand something. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some people are committed to chaos. And trying to explain yourself to toxic minds will only exhaust you more. Protect your energy. Protect your focus. Protect your spirit, because your life changes the moment you stop giving toxic people unlimited access to your peace. And let me tell you something else. You are not difficult for wanting respect. You are not selfish for creating boundaries. You are not wrong for walking away from environments that damage your mental health. Stop apologizing for protecting yourself. Stop feeling guilty for choosing peace. because nobody else will protect your peace for you. That responsibility belongs to you. And once you truly understand that, you become unstoppable. Not emotionally perfect, but emotionally stronger. You stop reacting to everything. You stop seeking validation everywhere. You stop needing everyone to understand you, because peace becomes more important than approval. And that's freedom. Freedom. Real freedom. The freedom to walk away from disrespect. The freedom to choose healthy environments. The freedom to prioritize your spiritual well-being. And once you experience that freedom, you never want to return to toxicity again, because now you understand peace is priceless. And anything that constantly disturbs your peace costs too much. So if you're in that season right now, the season where God is separating you from toxic people, don't fight it. Trust it, even when it hurts, because sometimes the greatest act of self-love is finally deciding, I deserve better. And the moment you truly believe that, everything changes. Sometimes God is silent because he's teaching you to let go. One of the hardest feelings in life is praying for something and hearing nothing back. You pray for the relationship to work. You pray for the person to change. You pray for the pain to stop. And instead of answers, you get silence. No signs, no clarity, no immediate breakthrough, just silence. And in that silence, your faith gets tested. You start wondering, God, why would you let this happen? Why did you allow me to love someone who hurt me? Why does it feel like I'm losing everything? But listen carefully. God's silence does not mean abandonment. Sometimes God is silent because he's teaching you something you would never learn in comfort. Letting go, and letting go is painful because humans naturally hold on. We hold on to memories, to people, to hope. Even when everything is falling apart. Why? Because endings scare us. Endings force us into uncertainty, into unfamiliar territory. And the human mind hates uncertainty. That's why many people stay in toxic relationships, not because they're happy, but because they're familiar. Painful familiarity feels safer than unknown freedom. And toxic people know this. They know you're emotionally attached. They know your heart struggles to let go. So they keep giving you just enough hope to keep you emotionally trapped. One good moment, one apology, one emotional conversation. And suddenly you start believing things will change again. But patterns reveal truth, not promises. Read that again. Patterns reveal truth. If someone repeatedly hurts you, disrespects you, destroys your peace, believe the pattern, not the temporary apology, because words are easy. Change is difficult. And some people never change, not because they can't, because they don't want to. And that's a painful truth to accept, especially when you love them, because your heart keeps searching for the version of them you hoped existed. But healing begins the moment you accept reality over fantasy, not potential. Reality, and reality often hurts. That's why God allows silence sometimes, because silence forces reflection. When distractions disappear, you finally start seeing clearly. You finally notice how much energy you lost, how much peace you sacrificed, how much emotional damage you normalized, and slowly, the attachment weakens. Not overnight. Healing is not instant. Some days you'll feel strong, other days you'll miss them deeply. That's normal. Healing is messy sometimes. But don't confuse missing someone with needing them back. Huge difference. You can miss people and still know they are unhealthy for your future. Maturity is understanding both truths at once, and this is where many people fail. They mistake emotional pain as a sign they should return. No, pain does not always mean you made the wrong decision. Sometimes pain is proof that you're finally breaking unhealthy attachments. That's growth, real growth, not fake positivity. Real growth is choosing peace even when loneliness tries to pull you backward. Real growth is trusting God even when your emotions are confused, because emotions are temporary. Purpose is bigger. And sometimes God removes people from your life because they are interfering with your purpose. You may not understand it immediately. In fact, you probably won't. Because pain clouds perspective. But one day you'll look back and realize that relationship was distracting you from yourself, distracting you from discipline, from growth, from peace. And God loved you enough to end what you didn't have the strength to leave. That's protection. Even if it didn't feel like it at the time. Now let's talk about attachment. Because attachment can make intelligent people act foolishly. Attachment makes you ignore obvious signs. Makes you tolerate repeated disrespect. Loss of the version of you that tolerated things you should have never accepted. That's why pain changes people. Not because pain itself is powerful, but because pain forces reflection. It forces you to stop, to think, to evaluate your life honestly, and honesty changes everything. Because once you truly see how certain people affected your peace, you can never unsee it again. You begin noticing patterns, how your energy dropped around them, how your confidence weakened, how your spirit felt heavy after every interaction. And suddenly you realize something painful. You were surviving relationships that were supposed to nourish you. That realization hurts, but it also awakens you, because awareness is the beginning of freedom. Most people stay trapped in toxic cycles because they never become fully aware. They normalize disrespect, normalize manipulation, normalize emotional inconsistency, and eventually chaos starts feeling normal. That's dangerous, because when dysfunction becomes familiar, you stop recognizing healthy love. You become attracted to emotional instability. You mistake confusion for chemistry. You mistake anxiety for passion. And without healing, you repeat the same cycle with different people. Different face, same pain. That's why transformation matters. Because healing is not just about moving on. Healing is becoming someone who no longer accepts what once broke them. That's evolution. And evolution changes your standards. The healed version of you will not beg for attention anymore, will not chase emotionally unavailable people, will not ignore red flags for temporary affection. Because pain taught you something valuable. Peace matters more than attachment. Read that again. Peace matters more than attachment. And once that truth reaches your soul, everything changes. Now listen carefully. There's a version of you waiting on the other side of this pain. Stronger, sharper, more disciplined, a version of you that no longer fears loneliness. Why? Because loneliness taught you self-respect. It taught you independence. It taught you emotional control. And emotional control is power. Because weak people react emotionally to everything. Strong people learn to pause, to think clearly, to protect their peace. That's maturity. And pain accelerates maturity, not because suffering is beautiful, but because suffering reveals truth quickly. It reveals fake friends, fake love, fake intentions. Pain exposes who truly cares about your spirit and who only enjoyed access to your energy. That's why some people disappear when you stop tolerating disrespect, because they were never connected to your heart, only your availability. And once you stop being emotionally available to toxic behavior, those people lose interest. Good. Let them leave. Not every departure is a loss. Sometimes, people leaving your life creates the space needed for peace to enter. And peace changes you. It changes how you think, how you speak, how you choose relationships. Because once you heal, you stop looking for excitement. You start looking for alignment. Alignment with your values, your purpose, your emotional well-being. And that shift is life-changing. Because now, you're no longer controlled by emotions alone. You stop chasing temporary feelings and start building long-term stability. That's growth. Now let's talk about identity. Because toxic relationships damage identity. Slowly. You stop recognizing yourself. You become quieter, more anxious, more emotionally exhausted. Not because you're weak, but because constant emotional chaos drains the soul. That's why healing requires rebuilding identity. Rediscovering who you are without toxic influence around you. And many people fear this stage. Why? Because they became emotionally dependent on others. Their identity became attached to relationships. So when relationships end, they feel lost. Still shrinking yourself, still abandoning your peace to avoid losing people. But now you know better. And once you know better, you move differently forever. So don't fear this transformation. Embrace it. Because this pain is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of becoming someone stronger than you ever imagined. 15. One day they will realize what they lost, but by then you'll be gone. Right now, they probably don't understand your value. That's the painful part. You gave loyalty, time, energy, real love, and they treated it like it was ordinary, like it was replaceable, and that hurts deeply. Because genuine people are rare, real loyalty is rare, real patience is rare, real support is rare. But toxic people often don't appreciate good hearts until they lose access to them. Why? Because some people become comfortable disrespecting you, comfortable ignoring your effort, comfortable assuming you'll never leave. And when someone thinks you'll always stay, they stop valuing your presence. That's human nature. People often underestimate what they see every day until it disappears. And many toxic people never realize your worth while they still have access to you. They realize it after the silence, after the distance, after they can no longer reach you emotionally. That's when reality hits them. Not immediately, sometimes months later, sometimes years later, when life humbles them, when fake people disappoint them, when temporary attention fades, when they realize peace is hard to find. Then suddenly, they remember you, your loyalty, your patience, your calm spirit, and for the first time, they understand what they lost. But listen carefully. By then, you must be gone, not physically only, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Because healing means you stop needing validation from people who once failed to value you. That's maturity. You no longer wait for apologies to move forward. You no longer need closure from people who caused the damage. Why? Because your healing became bigger than your ego, and that's powerful. Shoots to move forward. Now understand this clearly. Many people return not because they changed, but because access to you became difficult. Huge difference. Toxic people often confuse love with availability. As long as you were always there, they took you for granted. But once you disappear, once you stop responding emotionally, they panic. Why? Because your absence exposed your value and suddenly they want to reconnect. Not always because they genuinely healed, but because they missed the emotional comfort you provided. That's why discernment matters. Because not every return deserves a reunion. Read that again. Not every apology deserves access. Some people are sorry only because they lost convenience, not because they truly changed. And maturity is learning the difference. Because healed people understand something important. History alone is not enough reason to reopen doors. Time invested means nothing if peace was constantly destroyed. Love alone means nothing without respect. And memories alone cannot build a healthy future. That's why growth changes your standards. The healed version of you no longer gets emotionally manipulated by nostalgia. Nostalgia is dangerous sometimes. It makes you remember highlights while forgetting the damage. You replay good moments and ignore emotional exhaustion. That's how people return to toxic cycles. They romanticize memories and minimize pain. But wisdom sees the full picture, not selective emotions. Wisdom remembers the sleepless nights, the confusion, the disrespect, the emotional instability. And wisdom says, I cannot betray my peace again. That's growth. Now let's talk about silence, because silence is powerful. Not angry silence, not manipulative silence, peaceful silence. Peaceful silence, the kind of silence that comes from emotional detachment. Do not beg to be appreciated. Do not chase understanding from people committed to misunderstanding you. Keep growing instead, because one day they may finally realize what they lost. But by then, you'll be too healed to return. 16. Your greatest revenge is becoming unrecognizable. Let's make something clear. Revenge is not yelling, not arguing, not trying to hurt people back. That's weakness. Real revenge is transformation. It's becoming so mentally strong, so disciplined, so peaceful that the people who once broke you can no longer recognize you. That's power, because toxic people expect you to stay the same. Broken, though emotional, easy to manipulate. They expect you to keep reacting, keep chasing, keep giving them emotional access. But healing changes that. Healing teaches emotional control. And emotional control is one of the rarest forms of strength, because most people live emotionally undisciplined lives. They react instantly, text impulsively, return to toxic situations repeatedly. Why? Because emotions control them. But mature people learn something important: not every emotion deserves action. Read that again. Just because you miss someone doesn't mean you should contact them. Just because you feel lonely doesn't mean you should return to toxic environments. Feelings are temporary. Decisions create consequences. That's why discipline matters, especially after heartbreak, because pain makes people vulnerable. Vulnerable to bad decisions, bad habits, bad relationships. And if you're not careful, pain can turn into self-destruction. That's why this season matters so much, because right now you are either rebuilding yourself or destroying yourself slowly. There is no middle ground. Now hear this carefully. Your pain contains energy, powerful energy, and you must decide where that energy goes. Some people use pain to become bitter. Others use pain to become better. Choose wisely, because bitterness destroys from the inside. It makes people angry at the world, distrustful, emotionally toxic. But growth creates wisdom. It creates focus, discipline, purpose. And purpose changes everything. Because once you become purpose-driven, you stop obsessing over people who left. You become too busy building your future. That's the shift. You stop asking, why did they hurt me? And start asking, how can I become stronger because of this? That question changes lives. Now let's talk about rebuilding, because healing is not passive. You cannot sit in sadness forever and expect transformation. You must rebuild intentionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. That means discipline. Wake up earlier. Train your body. Strengthen your mind. Protect your habits. Because toxic relationships often destroy discipline. You lose focus, lose routines, lose motivation. Now it's time to reclaim control. One decision at a time, one habit at a time, one disciplined day at a time. And eventually, you start feeling different. Stronger, not because the pain disappeared, but because you became bigger than the pain. That's growth. Now understand this. The people who hurt you most often become the motivation for your transformation. Not because you're trying to prove something to them, but because pain wakes people up. Comfort rarely changes people. Pain does. Pain forces reflection, forces accountability, forces evolution. And if you use it correctly, pain becomes fuel for your future. Now hear me carefully, do not waste this pain. Most people waste heartbreak, they distract themselves endlessly. What? Seek temporary attention. Jump into unhealthy rebounds. But temporary distractions never create lasting healing. Only inner work does that. And inner work is uncomfortable. It requires silence, self-awareness, honesty. It requires facing truths you avoided for years. Like, why did I tolerate disrespect? Why did I fear loneliness so much? Why was I seeking validation from broken people? Those questions matter because awareness creates change, and change creates freedom. Now let's talk about confidence. Real confidence is not loud, it's calm. It's the ability to walk away from what disturbs your peace. It's the ability to stay disciplined even when emotions tempt you backward. It's the ability to say, I deserve better, and mean it. That confidence is built through survival, through healing, through finally choosing yourself after years of abandoning yourself emotionally. And trust me, once you build that level of self-respect, your entire life changes. You stop tolerating nonsense quickly. Stop forcing unhealthy connections. Stop begging people to value you. Because now you understand something powerful. The right people will never require you to betray your peace to keep them. That truth changes everything. Now hear this carefully. You do not need closure from everyone. Sometimes closure is behavior. Disrespect was closure. Inconsistency was closure. Manipulation was closure. Stop waiting for perfect explanations from people who lacked emotional maturity. Sometimes their actions already explained everything. Accept that and move forward, because your future is too important to remain emotionally trapped in the past. Now let's talk about purpose again, because pain often redirects people toward purpose. When distractions leave, clarity enters. You suddenly realize how much time you wasted emotionally, how much potential you ignored, how much energy was being drained, and now you have a choice. Stay emotionally stuck, or channel that energy into growth. Build your career, strengthen your faith, improve your mindset, master your emotions, become someone that your past pain would never recognize. That's the goal. Not revenge through anger, revenge through elevation. Now understand something important. Your transformation will confuse people, especially people who expected you to stay broken. They will notice the silence, the discipline, the emotional distance, and suddenly they no longer have access to the old version of you. Good. Because the old version tolerated too much. The new version protects peace. The new version values self-respect. The new version understands love should never cost your identity, and that lesson is priceless. Now maybe right now you still feel hurt. That's okay. Healing is not linear. Some days will feel heavy, some nights will feel lonely, but keep going. Do not quit on yourself, because one day you will wake up stronger than this pain. And when that day comes, you will thank yourself for not returning to what broke you. Broke you. You will thank yourself for choosing discipline over attachment, growth over comfort, peace over chaos. And most importantly, your future self will thank you for surviving this season. Because this season is building someone powerful, someone wiser, someone calmer, someone emotionally unshakable. So let them underestimate you. Let them think you're still broken. Meanwhile, heal quietly, grow silently, build yourself privately. And one day your entire life will speak for itself. Because your greatest revenge will never be hatred. It will be becoming someone the pain could not destroy. 17. The more you heal, the smaller toxic people start to look. Something strange happens when you begin healing. The people you once cried over start losing power over your mind. Not because they suddenly changed, but because you changed. Your perspective changed. Your standards changed. Your standards changed. Your emotional awareness changed. And once awareness grows, illusions disappear. That's why healing feels uncomfortable sometimes, because healing forces you to see people clearly. Not emotionally, clearly. You stop looking at potential and start looking at patterns. You stop listening to promises and start paying attention to behavior. And behavior never lies. That realization alone can save you years of suffering, because toxic people survive on confusion, mixed signals, inconsistency, manipulation. They keep you emotionally distracted so you never fully step back and see reality. But healing creates distance. And distance creates clarity. Suddenly, you start noticing things you ignored before. How one-sided everything was. How emotionally draining the relationship became. How much anxiety replaced peace. And eventually, you ask yourself something powerful. Why was I fighting so hard to keep something that was destroying me? That question changes people. Because once you truly understand how much damage certain people caused, attachment weakens. And when attachment weakens, freedom begins. And when attachment weakens. Now hear this carefully. Many people don't actually miss toxic people. They miss emotional familiarity. Huge difference. They miss routines, conversations, the temporary comfort of not feeling alone. But familiarity is not always healthy. Some people become addicted to dysfunction. Addicted to emotional chaos. That's why peaceful relationships feel boring to unhealed people. Because their nervous system became attached to instability. Healing breaks that addiction, slowly, painfully sometimes, but powerfully. And once you heal, you stop craving emotional confusion. You stop chasing inconsistent people. Stop entertaining manipulative behavior. Stop tolerating disrespect disguised as personality flaws. Because your peace becomes too valuable. That's growth. Now understand this. Healing raises your standards naturally. You no longer need to force boundaries. Boundaries become automatic. You instantly notice energy that feels wrong. You instantly recognize emotional games. You instantly sense manipulation. And instead of ignoring those feelings, you trust yourself. That's important. Because toxic relationships often destroy self-trust. You stop listening to intuition. Stop trusting your emotions. Stop trusting your judgment. Why? Because manipulation creates confusion. But healing restores clarity, and clarity restores confidence. Now let's talk about emotional detachment, because emotional detachment is misunderstood. It does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming emotionally intelligent. It means you stop allowing emotions to control your decisions completely. You stop confusing loneliness with love. Stop confusing attachment with destiny. Stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. That level of awareness protects your future because now you no longer fall for words easily. You observe consistency, effort, integrity, emotional maturity. And those things matter more than temporary attraction ever will. Now hear this clearly: as you heal, you will outgrow people. That's natural. Not everyone can grow with you. Some people were connected to your wounds, not your future. And once your wounds begin healing, the connection weakens. Why? Because toxic relationships often survive through dysfunction. One person seeks validation, the other seeks control. One person fears abandonment, the other fears accountability. And together they create unhealthy attachment. But healing destroys unhealthy attachment. That's why some relationships collapse the moment one person starts growing. Growth changes tolerance. You stop tolerating what once felt normal. And toxic people notice that quickly. Suddenly, they say you changed. You became distant, harder to manipulate, less emotionally reactive. Good. That means healing is working. Because the healed version of you should not resemble the version that tolerated constant emotional pain. And growth should change you. Now listen carefully. One of the biggest signs of healing is no longer needing revenge. You stop wanting people to suffer. Stop obsessing over proving your worth. Stop fantasizing about winning the breakup. Why?